Don't be ashamed of who you are. Don't let your illness bring you down. Let your illness bring you up.
It's time to consider cannabis. I'm your host, Curtis. This is the 10th episode of Consider Cannabis, and last week we talked to Victoria Kahn. In a few minutes, we're going to sit down with Jennifer Atkinson of the International Cannabis Patients Wall. But first, I'd like to take a moment to address you, our listeners, especially if you are someone who's already using cannabis to treat your illness. Your voice is needed. People in the state of Ohio, around this country, even around this world, want to hear your story and to hear your voice tell about your experiences using cannabis as medicine. And if you have AIDS, cancer, epilepsy, glaucoma, hepatitis C, inflammatory bowel disease, Parkinson's disease, if you've tested positive for HIV, if you have post-traumatic stress disorder, sickle cell anemia, spinal cord disease or injury, Tourette's syndrome, these are just some of the diseases that Ohio lists as qualifying conditions for medical cannabis use. And these particular conditions are conditions that I've yet to hear a voice represent. No, I'm not looking to only speak to people who can represent these conditions, but people want to hear your story and what you have to say. They want to hear from your voice, your experience. This podcast has never been about me. Now, I've enjoyed meeting the people and learning a lot from everybody's different backgrounds and experiences. In the 9 episodes before this one that we've released, we've had over 1,300 downloads, been listened to in 12 different countries. And while that's really cool, without patients' voices, there is no show. But now we're going to get right to it, speaking with Jennifer Atkinson of the International Cannabis Patients Wall. I do want to warn you that there is a leaf blower in the background that just won't quit. Now, I did what I could, but I'm not a miracle worker. But I hope it doesn't distract you too much because this is going to be a good episode. So join us and we'll consider cannabis together. Can you tell me a little bit about when your relationship with cannabis started?
Well, for medicinal or recreational? No, I'm just joking. I'm playing. I've always explained that the recreational side of what I was doing, I never understood like how it was working as an antidepressant or anything like that. Because when you do it recreational, you're not thinking about it. But there was a long period of time where I didn't think anything about it because, well, I chose drinking instead of that. But I didn't really, that was like the wow out, you know. I found if I combined, I had a lot of different blackouts or whatever, just not healthy. So then I just, you know, here and there drank or whatever, and I continued on with my journey until I got sick. When I got sick, you know, I didn't have much time into anything that I was doing at that time because my son was just born. He was everything that alerted the doctors. So it was very quick moving and they wanted to cut me. And I was like, no, you know, I didn't know exactly what I was dealing with.
Would you mind sharing the sickness that you referred to?
Yes, I got Paget's disease in the breast. And it was luckily caught very quickly.
What is Paget's disease?
It's where basically there's a cancer that is underneath the nipple in the milk glands, and it eats its way out.
Ooh.
It literally eats, you know, and there's some serious cases because, you know, they get the late diagnosis. The reason why I knew about it is because my son was born and my breast had gotten engulfed, and I thought, okay, there's something wrong. Go to a doctor. The doctor was like, well, it's probably an infection. So, but I want to be on the safe side because something doesn't look right about it. So when he sent me over to the breast clinic is where they went through several different things, even the biopsy and and that's where it came out that I had Paget's disease. And they wanted to cut right away because it is aggressive. It does destroy the breast if you let it go. I wasn't having that. I was having a panic attack. I was having the struggle. I want to go in a whole, not in pieces, you know. So, and plus I've never been very successful with surgeries in the past. So, you know, I was always afraid of everything. But I called my mom that was talking about the alternative medicines in Michigan and how cannabis was legal. She didn't know much about it, but maybe it'd be a start. And I went home to Michigan. And when I went home to Michigan is where my eyes were kind of lit up about everything about cannabis. Now, granted, I had the pharmaceutical train, just like most people, starting, and was scared to get off of that and just go solo on cannabis. But I did it. It just took time. And the quicker I did it, though, the better results I got. So I had to do a lot of research. I had friends that actually reached out to me to help me. And I thank them for their knowledge, because I probably wouldn't have believed it if it hadn't been for their knowledge already. And I just continued changing my diet, changing what I put into my body. I don't drink. I don't, I still eat meat. I'm not vegan or anything like that, but I just pay attention to what I'm doing, and I put more vegetables in my diet, and I drink more smoothies, etc., things that are nutritious.
Can we take a pause for just a moment and go back to, they wanted to cut the cancer out and you said you didn't want that.
Right.
Is that what you're...
Okay. Right. Okay. I didn't know, though, at that time what Paget's disease develops into until later on, when I started experimenting with the cannabis and the pharmaceutical. Cannabis, I was treating on the outside and the inside. So I was taking oil and I was putting oil on my breast, and I would do it every single day. But what the extreme cases are is that the whole breast is like ate, almost like a bacteria. The MRSA, how it eats from the inside out. Same kind of concept, but it's very aggressive and will eat your whole breast away. I didn't really know that when I was making that decision until I started seeing pictures, and I was like, my boobie doesn't look like that. But that's exactly what happens when it's not treated.
So your case got caught early, and instead of going into the invasive treatment that they wanted to recommend right away, because naturally they don't want it to get worse, so let's do that now. But you chose not to and proceeded to treat yourself with cannabis. I certainly don't question your decision-making process in that at all. I was just trying to figure out or get a verbal testimony from you about what the treatment with the plant actually did for your disease.
It healed from the inside out. When you're okay, I don't know. Have you ever used oil yourself, Vika?
No, I've used some topical CBD stuff, but nothing like... Okay. So let's say you burn yourself or cut yourself, okay, to the point to where you have to go to the hospital, okay? You don't have to go to the hospital. You can, because you can work in the yard and get cut pretty bad with a yard tool. So let's say, you get cut straight down the finger and there's blood everywhere. You clean it up. Usually people wrap it up and go to the hospital. No, what you do is you put the oil on it, okay, and you smother it. And the next day you will have skin growing over. It's better than super glue, let's put it that way. So, because I know you've had that, at least somebody has. Where sure.
You go to a hospital and they put super glue on there or whatever. Yeah, you don't have to do that.
We didn't even go to the hospital anymore. We just did it ourselves.
Right. Now you just go buy it. But, that's the thing, is that it will start healing the skin. And then it's less of a scar, period. And it's healthy, and it's taking all the bad bacteria out at the same time.
What did you call this stuff? This specific oil? What did you call it? Oh,
it's commonly known as FICO, full plant extract. Rick Simpson oil, people call it too. But it's a full THC.
Okay.
It's extracted from the plant. So most oils, I'm not going to say all, but most oils are in between 86 and 96% THC.
You said that you've had relapses and that those have been during periods of time when you haven't been using cannabis?
Yes. The uterine, no. That was just in me, but it didn't spread. And it was like just sitting in there. And I was having problems, female problems, and that's how that came about. And the doctor didn't know, he's like, how did it just stay in one spot, basically? It spread in that spot, but it was aggressive looking, but it hadn't moved. And that was kind of confusing to him. And I told him that I had been using oil, and he said, I don't know what that is, but whatever you're doing, keep doing it. He's like, because I had healed from my hysterectomy in 2 weeks. And that means all the stitches on the inside and the outside. And by the 4th week, completely fine. And, I broke every rule, because I'm like, don't pick up my kid. What are you talking about? I got to pick up my kid. He's a baby. I have to do that.
Right.
So it wasn't like, I was following the doctor's game plan anyway, but he was very amazed by it. He's like, most women at 6 weeks aren't even fully healed. And I was like, well, okay. And then he was talking about cancer. And I had told him, I said, well, I was just using oil. I said, because I don't like pain pills. I don't feel human on them. I feel out of control, and I don't like that. And I said, I have bad side effects from them. So the first day I did the pain pill, but after that, I just switched my pain pill to oil. I said, and I was able to do everything I was supposed to do. So now the basal came along when I was in Tennessee, and I didn't know that was what it was, but because I didn't have insurance and that it was hard to find an actual care doctor, that's what forced me back to Michigan anyway. And then when I went home, I had a doctor actually cut a piece off, and he at first said, oh, I think this is benign, except for the roots just were wrapped around my muscle as I'm sitting there screaming. I'll never forget that, because the doctor was like, he had put numbing gel on there or whatever, some type of something. And he's like, do you feel this? I was like, yeah, I feel that. And he's like, oh, you're fine. I'm like, no, really, I feel that. And that really hurts. And I was crying, and I was biting my other hand, trying not to move, And he goes, well, you chose cannabis. You're fine. You'll be fine. And I was like, excuse me? I never heard a doctor be so disrespectful because I chose a healthier way. And by the time he got the thing out, I have a scar on my shoulder that's literally the size all the way around. And that's just from that one piece. I said, never again. I was like, So I used my friend's, I guess I can say, I used my friend Michael Tui's holy oil. And I put it on my skin every night before bed. If I'm out in the sun, I do the same thing. But what happened back then is once I figured out that's what that was, I did the same thing. I started putting holy oil everywhere. And it's just, it's a catatonic 4 plant brought down into a 0.03%. So it would go under the hemp bill. But I would put it on me, and within a couple weeks, the spots that were coming up were gone, as if they just fell off. It was the weirdest thing. And so now I just treat every night. I put the holy oil on. If I see something questionable, I put the holy oil on, And I've been fine since. I haven't had any interruptions except for mold. And I didn't have my medication then because Florida was not legal yet. It was in the transitioning period where the voters said yes, but it didn't kick in.
Right.
And Hurricane Matthew had lifted my roof, and I didn't realize that mold was going to be in my walls and everywhere else. But it ended up being black spore, and I had spores in my lungs, and I was sick, very, very sick. And then somebody had brought me oil, and I got myself better again. But it took almost 4 months to get where I could breathe right, where I could actually talk without having a whisper or a high-pitched noise come out of my mouth. I mean, it was pretty bad. And at that same time, I lost my daughter because of a judge on the whole mold issue. It wasn't about mold. It was about the fact that I was a cannabis patient, but I was waiting for my medicine.
So you didn't take advantage of any black markets out there?
No, I can't. I would if I didn't have kids, because I live in a world where there's a lot of vindictiveness. People seem to think that when you're a card holder, that you can attack them like anybody else. And I've been attacked several times by my child's father, by neighbors. Um, and the card protects me, thank God, because if you didn't have that ability, then usually people are all over you. I just went through a whole nother DSS thing the other day. Gladly, they just had to view my child. But the point is that, these people in this world think, oh, well, let me just make a call and see what happens. You just affect the kids and their friends. You're not doing anything. I guess if I lived off of the state, but I don't. I don't have any income from the state. I don't have food stamps, and I don't have medical through the state. I pay outright, and my kids are well taken care of. So you can't really touch me and tell me that, A, you can't use that when I'm legally able to. You're going to go through that. So when you have kids, it's hard to go the black market route.
So it seems like you've been a victim of a lot of the stigma that still surrounds cannabis.
Oh, absolutely.
How would you change people's minds about it?
My medicine cabinet is a safe, unlike most people's medicine cabinet, and my house is no different than anybody else's house. The way I run my house, I'm pretty firm, but I still spoil and everything else. Everybody's welcome at my house. I don't see the difference, except for I'm a lot more safer than just my medicine cabinet. I don't like when you see the horrible things and it could be a lot worse, but horrible things meaning like people blowing smoke in babies' faces. I don't know who does that.
Right.
But obviously they're not stable. They're not stable material, and I would never do that. And most cannabis users wouldn't do that are parents or even aunts, uncles, whatever. They're not going to do that.
Right.
You sit there and you hear all the different things about Halloween and the edibles. Don't they realize how much an edible costs? Who's going to give out Halloween candy, that's got edibles? No, I don't see that, No, edibles cost too much money. It's not going to happen. And I'm not saying that it can't. I'm saying that most responsible adults are not going to do that.
Yeah, I think it's more likely that your kid's going to climb up on the countertop and find your secret stash of brownies and eat.
Absolutely. And the thing is, we have to start with educating our children. DSS asked me, well, do you smoke in front of your kids? I'm like, first of all, that's not even a question. I said, my kids could run in the room and I'm like, get out of the room. It's adult time or something to that nature. I'm like, but it starts with education by showing them, here's a cookie and here's a cookie. Can you tell me the difference between the cookies? No? Okay. Can you smell that cookie? Can you smell that cookie? Do you see a difference of that? We have to educate our children that medicine is medicine. It's not a dirty word. It's cannabis. But when we're starting with little people, we just call it medicine.
Mm-hmm.
Because it goes in a whole line of list of different things that could be. And then as you get older with your kids, they start to learn terminology. There's certain things to me that are really important. And by showing that the edibles are very similar to the other things, unless you're actually already got it in your mouth, you can smell it a little bit. But for the most part, a child's a child. They grab, they take, they go to their room, they eat, And so to me, I feel it's very important that they know that there is, quote unquote, no visual difference. So you ask before you take. And I said that to my daughter when I was first educating her. Now, I did it a little different. I educated her with children's story, not my story. So she understood that it was medicine. And some people do it with their own story. I just felt like if she could relate to the children, that she would understand it a little bit better.
What is the children's story?
I did with Charlotte's Web. I did with Alexis on the Wall, Landon on the Wall. The different ones that I had already had experience with, whether I met them or whether, I just had their full story. So that way she could actually visually see it and go, oh, well, if it's not hurting them and it's making them better, then obviously it's not going to hurt mama and it's going to make her better. And she's a true believer. I don't doubt if Vea will grow up to be an activist one day, because she sees nothing wrong with, she sees a lot wrong with alcohol. She sees a lot wrong with other drugs, making it so it destroys your community, like meth. It's not dirty in your streets. It's not thieving, I mean, granted, there is some scenarios on, okay, a lot of people will say, I drink, so what? Okay, so at any point, have you ever overdrank to where you feel crappy in the morning, to where you might have hurt somebody's feelings, or da-da-da-da-da, and the list goes on. If you say yes to all that, then you might have a problem, Drugs. Oh, yeah, I've experimented with this and that. Okay, so that's great that you experimented and you were able to walk away. But there's a lot of people that pick up something and never able to walk away. Cannabis is different. Cannabis is able to pick it up, walk away if you want to, go days without it if you want to. Not that, if you're a patient that it's healthy, but you can do that. And there's different ways of doing it too. Just like with the children, their tinctures and their oil. And it's not something that, it's not always smoking. I always say smoking is like 20% of a cure. 80% is ingestion. 80%, no matter how you look at it, how you ingest. I mean, I used to take a bud and chew on it. If I couldn't get anything else, I would chew on that. And, I just felt like I was better than nothing, and people, and a lot of people, they'll disagree with that. But like I said, I've learned to use the whole entire spectrum, meaning from hemp to CBD to THC to one-on-one ratio, it's all different. There's so many different ways to treat different things that I think that in the end, why not try them? Because they're not going to hurt you. Not like everybody else's scenario of meth. Well, I was on Ritalin and then boom, I became a meth head. You know what I mean? That's not that's not healthy. And I believe that if you actually look at the lineage of people, it really does come from the pharmaceuticals, our addiction issues. Not to say they're not, in our gene pools or whatever, but a lot of it's coming from the pharmaceuticals that we put in our body. We have 12-year-olds on Oxycontin. Why? They shouldn't be on Oxycontin. We have Xanax for 4-year-olds. Why? I don't understand. I can't wrap my mind around why all of these different pharmaceuticals are getting fed to our kids when the whole time they're talking about cannabis in a child's brain. But what about Oxycontin and Xanax and all these other horrific things for children in their brain? Even the antidepressant line.
Yeah.
They say don't give them under the age of 18. Well, you're still giving them, but they're worried about the development of a child's mind with cannabis. I'm not seeing it. Sports is getting harder, and sports causes a lot of injuries. Well, then we cause a lot of addicts. So I'm just, I look at it that way, but I'm not sure, how to make that a better scenario or anything. But I mean, we can't stop the stigma that cannabis users are horrible people, because I mean, I can list a whole bunch of alcoholics that are horrible people too. But at the end of the day, I'm healthy. They're not. Their liver's shutting down. Mine's not,
At what point in your journey of treatment did you begin the International Cannabis Patient Wall?
Is when I was in Tennessee. We were legislating at the Capitol there in Nashville. I met Dana and several other patients. Those patients had a lot of courage. And I'm not talking about patients that already have cannabis. I'm saying patients in need. And when I saw people like Wally, who's wheelchair bound and he has TBI, and his mother begging them and crying, that melted me in itself, because Wally's so sweet. Just to see the fight that Tony has, she has Hep C even, and she still takes care of Wally every day. And just knowing that I was at that, I think it's a medical board, they call it. It was horrible. It was horrible how they just didn't care. They didn't care. They don't live in these people's shoes, they don't care. And maybe one day those people will wake up in an aha moment and say, oh, well, I guess maybe those people were right. But I doubt it, because the way that they were so cold to those people, and after all the tears that I seen for an hour straight, it amazed me, how not so nice literally these people are. That's why I say with those states, they need to start voting out the people that are not for the patients. Quit voting on whether or not they're religious, whether or not, just stuff that is not happening in their everyday lives. Their everyday life is they're struggling, they're sick. I've never seen such an epidemic. When I was in the mountains and I lived in Morristown, Tennessee, I'm going to just let it out there. I lived in Morristown, Tennessee, and I took my kids down to the river, and there was needles everywhere. Needles everywhere. I've never seen such a horrible epidemic.
Wow.
And I thought, but this is okay. I seen 80-year-olds in the mugshot papers for meth. I'm thinking, what are you doing for 80? You're 80 years old. Like what does that have to do? I mean, and literally it comes down to the opiates. I've noticed that people that are on opiates, they go to the heroin or the meth. I don't know why, but it just keeps going. It's a vicious circle, and it's like they enable it. Like, well, we're not going to do this, so you suffer. And there's tons of those Suboxone clinics, and like more than what I've ever seen in mountains. Not the big cities. I'm talking about the mountains. There's tons. And I was just like, wow, it's like they want them to kill themselves off. And so the wall came about when they denied the patients' rights, when they denied the bill that was up there. And it wasn't a great bill, but it was a bill. It was a starter. And I just told Dana, I said, well, they won't listen this way. Maybe they'll listen nationally. And then that became even more, that when it was National Cannabis Patient Wall, me and Dana needed help really quick, because we didn't realize how many people were going to jump on board of the project. And we ended up international. We just changed it this year because we have so many countries on board. I can't remember how many, but there's tons. It's a huge project. It's hard to reach because we actually have to build the wall. The wall is, yeah. I had gotten a printer company set up just so that way we would save on cost when we actually do it. But it's going to sit over there from the White House, and whoever's president, whether it's Cheeto 45 or if it's the next person, I don't care. But they're going to look at a wall of names and their pictures and people that have passed because of a plant. You put people in jail because of a plant. You've killed people because of a plant. Do no harm is the oath that they all take. And yet they're taking children. They're killing people. They're putting people in jail all over a plant. That's the point of the wall. Not going to be able to avoid it.
Logistically, like what's next in the plan for that?
Each state's going to have panels of names, pictures, etc. We already have the virtual wall going. We encourage patients sign up all the time because their information is saved. It's not to be bought. But anyways, we do encourage that for every state, every country. Like I said, we have gone international. One of our more friendlier people is North Canada, where we have a lot of people from there, but we have them all over the world. It's just amazing. And the different struggles that each country has, in some countries you get caught, it's a death sentence, and that's almost scary. But then we have like Israel, who has 30 plus years of knowledge on us, and that's great, because I love to see that research come out of there, because at least it's not mice.
So if people wanted to sign up for the virtual wall, where would they go?
You go to www.incpwall.org, and you go over to the little drop down, and it'll say, I think it's patients, and then you click on that and it'll tell you where to sign up from there. And it'll just go on there. It goes on there automatically, and you put it's very basic. You can Let's say instead of Jennifer Atkinson, you can put J Atkinson or Jennifer A, which there's tons of that. So you're not outing yourself if you feel that way. And you just answer the questionnaire, and it's very basic. It's not intrusive. It's not nothing like income and or that. No, it's about strictly what's your conditions, where are you from. It's used for data also, so that way we can get data charts out for activists that are sitting there going, but look, this percentage says that this works for this, and this is why I'm here today, because I have the right to try this. So we have a lot of stuff for the activists on there for each state, to take and kind of indulge themselves and get a little bit more knowledge. We have the registration of the bills group, so that way any new bills coming in, but they have to be official, get put there for each state or country. We have the research group. That's for people that don't know about cannabis, or maybe a new thing to them, a new diagnosis, and they need to know if cannabis can work for it or against it. I mean, most time it works for it, but you never know. People are all sensitive in different ways. So, we've really expanded. We have our media page, the stuff that either A, gets you in a wow moment, B, angry, or C, happy. It doesn't matter. It's going there, and it's for you to sound off and actually kind of get in touch with more of what is going on.
That's awesome.
We always encourage
great.
The patient studies, anybody that is a patient to share their picture, share their story. And we always snag the picture so it goes into our wall profile for the people and their stories. And if they are a patient, we usually try and look at what they wrote and put it in ourselves and know what state they came from and stuff like that. We believe in being open and transparent with everything. We have a contest right now that is going on till December 3rd, where we are giving back to our members, not just patients, not just activists, but actual members of our support group, for saying thank you for being with us for 4 years. And so that's pretty exciting right now, because we give away free tickets. There's way to buy tickets. There's little gifts for buying tickets, stuff like that. So it's a good time.
Do you have any events coming up?
Right now, no. For me, at least. I know Dana's getting ready for legislation coming up at the beginning of the year in Tennessee again. She's previewing some of the stuff that's hopefully going to get out there past, I know Miss Vicky is sitting out in California, and she's having a struggle with the cost. Right now she's recreational because the cost for a patient, and that's that unbalance of a bad program there. Mm-hmm. It was good, and then it was bad. Right. Because she can't be friended anything now. So if somebody wanted to help her, can't do that because that's against the new rec bill. So, and that's upsetting too, because we have the veterans out there that, in, I forget if it's San Diego or San Francisco, I forget where, but there's a group that gives monthly supplies to the vets, gives them it. And now that interferes with that. And then you have I can't think of the name of it, but a great dispensary out there. And I don't care if you like the person or not. What they do is amazing. They have a low income package. They have, from the time that you hit their yoga, physical, nutritional health, all these different classes for people. And I think that is the best way to educate yourself. And that is the best dispensary I've ever heard of. And I would love to go there to just say, you're doing a great job. Do
you know the name of that dispensary?
I can't think of it. I know Ricky knows it, but I can't think of it. But it's well known. And it literally has a package for everybody. And it has more educational backing than I've ever seen. And I really hope that they continue to go down the roads that they had started, and that the new bill doesn't interfere with that.
Is there anything else that you would like our audience to know or to take away from this conversation?
Don't be ashamed of who you are. Don't let your illness bring you down. Let your illness bring you up. Be outspoken. Don't hide in the shadows, because who wants to live in the dark? I don't. I like some sunshine. And I think a lot of people, their decision making has to do with what other people think. Well, screw other people. You only live once. You got to keep living, and I feel like, cannabis isn't a dirty word. Medicine isn't a dirty word. And we all have options and we all have choices. And let's not make our decision based off of stigma.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
If you'd like to learn more about the International Cannabis Patients Wall, join them at ncpwall.org or check them out at the International Cannabis Patients Wall Facebook page. Now, as we wrap up this week's episode, I'd like to leave you with this. I want you to know that I'm proud to be a part of this show, and I'm grateful to have been able to meet and get to know all the guests who've come on and shared their stories. And I'd like there to be more stories. And I'd love to meet some more people who come from all different walks of life, but have ended up at the same crossroads of having to choose pharmaceutical treatments or cannabis, or maybe even both. If that's you, please reach out to me and we'll consider cannabis together. Consider Cannabis is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment recommendations. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. If you would like to be a guest and share how cannabis has helped your health and wellness, contact me at considercannabisnow.com or the Consider Cannabis Facebook page. If you found anything of value in this episode, please share it with someone else. Remember to subscribe for free and get every new episode delivered right to your phone. Join me next time, and we'll consider cannabis together.